Would you say that there is ever a justification for slavery? Sounds like a pretty ridiculous question, but hear me out for a second. Think about every situation you can imagine, the worst people you can think of, your worst enemy. Can you think of any situation where you would say that owning another human being is morally permissible? Where it would be okay to have complete control over where they lived and what they did? Where you could make them work as long as you wanted, doing grueling labor for little or no money, punishing them however and whenever you wanted? This would include the right to cut them off from their family, their friends, and all forms of leisure, subjecting them to physical or mental abuse to keep them behaved, docile, and afraid to run away. This is really, really awful stuff. But I want to make sure that everyone is clear on what slavery actually is. My hope is that your answer is no without any hesitation in your voice. What I've described is heinous and unthinkable in our world today. I know for myself, as a Christian, I've been taught to love my enemies, not hate them. I know that each and every human being is created in the image and likeness of God, and as such, is due inalienable human rights and dignities. Every life has worth, not because they've earned it or because they're useful to society, but because God has created and loves them. So no, I can't imagine a situation where this level of dehumanization could ever be acceptable. Not for an enemy of war, not for a political adversary, not for Hitler himself. It's wrong and disgusting, always and everywhere. Which is why I have such a problem with the American prison system. Yeah, this is not going to be an uplifting video, but it will be an important one. For some, if not most, the idea of equating a prison sentence with slavery seems like a stretch. Clickbaity hyperbole, controversial woke nonsense, right? I get it. But if you give me just a few minutes, I think I can convince you otherwise. The topic is divisive, sure, but it's not actually controversial. The facts speak for themselves, and they should upset us. And so we begin, quite obviously, with the fact that incarcerated people are locked in prisons with no ability to leave, just like slaves. Now, this in itself is not so problematic, as even the Catholic Church would contend a need to care for the common good of society. Some are a danger to others, and so they need to be separated. Except, prisons do more than just keep people safe from others. They put prisoners to work. Today, there are an estimated 800,000 prisoners that work as a part of their sentence. To put that number into perspective, that's about the population of San Francisco. And these people are not freely choosing to work, they are forced to work. Some are forced to work as a part of their sentence and are penalized with harsh punishments if they fail to comply. Others work because it's the only way to survive. You see, even though someone might be in prison, doesn't mean that everything is provided for them. Our tax dollars only go so far. Phone calls cost money. So does toothpaste, toothbrushes, deodorant, bars of soap, feminine products, and extra food. The goal of most prisons, especially those that are privatized for profit, is to provide the bare minimum. Unfortunately, recent lawsuits have shown that even this is not met in many places. Some prisons only provide 2 meals a day, while others provide only inedible food. In Michigan, maggots were found in prisoners' food. In Illinois, rat droppings and cockroaches. It's no wonder that a study found that 94% of incarcerated people feel constantly hungry. Now, some will say that giving prisoners incentive to provide for themselves and give back to the economy is a good thing, right? It creates new virtues, new work ethic. Sure, in theory, just not the way it's being carried out. Because prisoners are exempt from OSHA standards and the Fair Labor Standards Act, among other regulations, the incarcerated are often thrown into dangerous situations. They are sent to fight wildfires, made to use powerful industrial machinery in factories without proper training or safety, and are forced to work in agricultural fields with no water and broken tools for hours in the heat. Here's just one example of what it's like to be a prison worker, as written by the ACLU. In Colorado, an incarcerated worker assigned to a sawmill was told by a supervisor to reach into a conveyor belt area to dislodge a piece of wood. A blade sliced through her helmet and straight into her skull, nearly decapitating her. Instead of being rushed to the emergency room, a shift commander ordered her back to the prison infirmary with 2 feminine hygiene pads on her wound because the sawmill had no first aid kit. She later developed an antibiotic-resistant staph infection. In the open market, dangerous and undesirable jobs like this pay additional wages to attract workers, but this is not necessary when labor is forced. And so, despite producing roughly $11 billion a year to the economy, prisoners receive, on average, 13 to 52 cents an hour for private businesses across all states, up to 30 cents to $1.30 an hour in state-owned industries. Imagine working 8 hours, doing grueling work, and walking away with $2.40. But that's not even the most absurd part of this. These wages, as small as they already are garnished and taxed by prisons. That's right. You're probably not even taking home all $2.40 for the day. That money is first put towards court costs, restitution, and get this, room and board. Yes, prisoners are forced to pay for room and board they're forced to be in. In total, studies estimate that between 50 and 80% of prisoners' wages are withheld for various purposes. 50 to 80%. Of course, this whole situation is avoided completely in 7 states, as they don't pay wages at all. That's right, Texas, Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, Florida, Nevada, and Maine. Prisoners are forced to work in your state, producing goods and services that the government sells for a profit and aren't compensated at all. Add this to the fact that prisoners are constantly dehumanized, stripped of their dignity and often their clothes, and given no recourse for subhuman conditions, and what you get looks a lot like slavery to me. A connection that, to many, is not just a coincidence, but by design. You see, when slavery was officially abolished with the 13th Amendment, an exception clause was added. Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction, except as a punishment for crime. It's right there in the design. With this clause, slavery was never actually abolished. It was just limited to a specific situation, a situation that has been exploited ever since. Laws were written in Reconstruction South known as the Black Codes that, among other things, made it illegal to be on the street and without a job. Police could go around, round up any black person without a job, and throw them in jail for many years. Right back to forced free labor they went. Once this didn't work, it was on to criminalizing drugs and increasing enforcement, particularly for drugs most used by people of color. Institute 3 strike laws and mandatory minimums, and you are guaranteed to maintain a steady influx of new workers each year. Add this to the fact that convicted felons, even once they finish their sentences, are ineligible for government assistance or housing, are often barred from many jobs, and cannot vote, and what you get is a growing population of systematically disenfranchised people that are more likely to return to prison, where they will happily be received to provide more goods and services for next to nothing. Housed in places away from society, behind walls, with limited access to visitors or media, ensuring that everything is out of sight and out of mind. And really, who would question it anyway? They're criminals. Bad people. They deserve it, right? This is not a rehabilitative system. Between 85 and 90% of inmates are not serving life sentences, meaning that they will re-enter society at some point. There is no way that you can say that they are better off because of this system. It is far more than a means of incapacitation. There are ways that we could safely house people away from society while maintaining their dignity and providing for their needs. This ain't it. And a look to the ever-growing number of prisoners and high recidivism rates show that it is nowhere close to a deterrent. Quite the opposite, actually. Because privately run prisons have quota requirements in their agreements with the government, police forces and judges are actually encouraged to punish to the full extent of the law. Beds will be filled one way or another. No, prisons in this country are not about rehabilitation, they're not about incapacitation, and they're not about deterrence. They are, first and foremost, and have always been, forms of retribution, of punishment, of causing pain and shame in people because they have done something wrong, so who cares about them? They deserve whatever they get, right? And so returning to the beginning, I just have to ask, does any of this sound morally acceptable to you? Even if you don't accept the widely posited conclusion that the prison system today is just modern enslavement, there is no denying that there is something absolutely unjust and inhumane about it, something fundamentally against the dignity of the human person at play. Is this something that Jesus would support? Is this how Jesus would have us treat our enemies? Is this what you would expect from his church? I'm not suggesting that we close all prisons or abolish the legal system, by no means. But I am asking us to look at what we have and ask if we're okay with this on our consciences. In Matthew 25, Jesus separates the sheep and the goats, judges who goes to heaven and who doesn't, and this is his criteria. What you did to the least of these, the hungry, the thirsty, the stranger, the naked, the ill, and those in prisons, you did to me. If Jesus were in our prison system today, how would you feel about standing before him on the day of judgment? How would you feel if he was treated the way we as a society treat our incarcerated? For too long, we have been sold the idea that criminals deserve what they get. Don't do the crime if you can't do the time, right? In acting as they have forfeited their right to our sympathy and should pay back for what they've done. This is not a Christian idea. There's nothing Christ-like in treating someone like this. It goes against everything we believe about the human person. The bishops of this country agree. We are convinced that our tradition and our faith offer better alternatives that can hold offenders accountable and challenge them to change their lives, reach out to victims and reject vengeance, and restore a sense of community and resist the violence that has engulfed so much of our culture. It is not an either-or situation. We must protect the human dignity of the victim and the offender. Why? Because human dignity is a right, not a privilege. It cannot be taken away no matter what someone does. A prison system that seeks to punish and shame rather than love and rehabilitate is one that knows nothing of Christ and cares nothing about the human person. As Christians that claim to be pro-life, we undermine everything we say about the value of the human person in the case of abortion if we stand idly by while literally millions of people live in dehumanizing, degrading, and enslaved conditions. Out of sight, out of mind isn't good enough. These are our brothers and sisters, and they are being stripped of their humanity. Please don't look away. Do not ignore them.